Okay, welcome to the Island Transit Board of Directors special meeting for June 21st, 2024, day after summer solstice. Welcome, everybody. This is a hybrid meeting. We have members of the public joining us, and so I'm calling to order this special meeting. We'll be roll call.
Melanie Bacon.
Eric Marshall.
Jenny Bryant.
Craig Sear.
Janet Sinclair.
Thank you. And at the moment, Jill Johnson is not here. Okay, motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I am the labor representative.
You are, you should speak up.
Well, I just did, but you didn't call my name to see if I'm here.
Sorry.
I accept your apology. Lance Smith, labor representative in attendance.
Sea Lions.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Jenny.
Okay. All right. Any changes to the agenda? All those in favor of the agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Unanimous. Time set aside for members of the public to speak to the board on subjects of concern interest or items not already set aside for public meeting. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. Public comment may be ended or modified if the comments become disruptive and not germane to business at hand. Input requiring lengthier comment is best submitted in writing. I appreciate written comments that come in. Are there any public comments today? I don't see any in the room. I don't see any hands raised. Elaine, do you see any raised?
Nope.
Okay. Closing the public comment section, we're going to be moving on to our business items. The first business item is purchasing of 6 rideshare vans, and queued up is Mr. Brad. Take it away, Brad.
Thank you, sir. In recent years, it has been difficult to purchase vehicles for our rideshare fleet due to manufacturer shortages. Island Transit has therefore accumulated a backlog of vehicle needs in this program. The agency has 10 vans that can be replaced now and 12 vans that need replacing in the next state biennium. Additionally, we have no vans available for the growth of the program. Plus, we also have 2 rideshare groups that are currently operating in large 12-passenger vans but have requested smaller minivans because of their group size. Upon board approval, Island Transit would purchase 6 minivans. Our preferred model is the Chrysler Pacifica Touring L, which is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, which is on the state contract, or other similar hybrid vehicles on the state contract. Vehicle options on the state contract can change without notice, but the Pacifica is supposed to be available for 2 more weeks. 2 vans would replace the 12-passenger vans in service. 2 vans would replace other vehicles, and the final 2 would be expansion vans. This purchase would be with local funds. WSDOT grant funding will not be available until 3rd quarter of 2025, and that program's funding may be impacted if the Climate Commitment Act is repealed. Also, the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services contract is about to close out for many of the hybrid models we would purchase as part of our carbon reduction strategy. Hybrid powered vehicles are the recommended choice for now, as they can be effectively charged from a regular wall outlet. Some groups are commuting long distances and do not have access to charging equipment at home, nor are many park and ride lots equipped for charging. These factors preclude the purchase of fully electric vans currently. However, many groups take shorter trips, and these can operate in mostly electric mode. The hybrid engine can then reduce our carbon emissions on longer trips without any range anxiety associated with fully electric vehicles. Hybrid vehicles can also be maintained by our maintenance team, whereas fully electric vehicles often must go to a dealer. Our objective with this procurement is pre-pandemic, our rideshare program had almost 70 vans in operation. We currently have 29 vans in service. We've not had any expansion vans in about 2 years. Our goal is to grow the program back as much as possible. The budget for this purchase request is for 6 minivans will be purchased And the budget request, not including taxes and fees, is for $384,000. This purchase would be with local funds. Staff will purchase using the Washington State Department of Environment or Enterprise Services vehicle contract, with the preferred model being the Chrysler Pacifica Touring L plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Other hybrid vehicles may be considered based on current availability in the state contract. And the recommendation is to authorize the purchase of up to 6 minivans using hybrid engine technology for the rideshare program, with a not to exceed total cost of $384,000, excluding taxes and fees, through the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services vehicle contract.
Thank you, Brad. Are there questions from the board?
I just want to thank Brad for taking on the responsibility of overseeing our rideshare. You're doing a fabulous job. Thank you, Brad.
Brad, in the document, it says that they're gonna be available for 2 more weeks,
Right, we can place orders for 2 more weeks.
and are 6 available.
So the dealer's not sure. They're not given a quantity from the manufacturer. They're just notified that, hey, our quota is full and we're closing out this vehicle, and that can happen anytime.
And it's just for this model year 24. So they'll take new orders for next model year. But those may not open up until 25, when it's like January possibly. So
Yeah. And delivery time is often can be 6 to 8 months.
That was my next.
So getting this order in now kind of gets us, it's gonna get 25 off to a good start.
Commissioner St. Clair had a question.
Commissioner St. Clair, question?
Yeah, I have a few questions. So, first of all, what is our current, you talk about, we have 2 vans that would be better served in a smaller, with smaller entities. That's appreciated data. Do we have a wait list on vans, and how long is the wait list for our rideshare program?
Thank you, ma'am, for those questions. Currently, we do not have a wait list on our van pool program. We have not, for a number of months, for about a year, been marketing for growth. We have been trying to sustain. Now, we have had the ability to fill in some what vehicles that we were potentially going to surplus with groups that came in, but we were not actively recruiting groups. Sir.
And Janet, if I could just jump in, last year, I had 2 groups that I was a part of that were waiting for vans. So even though maybe at this very moment, we don't have a waiting list, in the recent 6 months, we did have a waiting list.
Yeah, and the only form of waiting list we have right now are actually for minivans. We have 7 12-passenger vehicles that are out for service only, or that are out in revenue service, I should say. Only 2 of those groups have enough riders, have more than 6 riders in their group. The other 5, they're all smaller groups that are driving these large vans because that's what we've got. And they would all 5 of those vans would love to move into smaller vehicles. But there's 2 really that we're gonna get to right now.
Okay, and what is the fund, if this is going to be coming from existing funds, you say local funds, that doesn't mean much to me. What is the fund source, and what is the balance in that fund? Where is this in our budget?
This is essentially a budget amendment. It's local funds. It's coming out of unrestricted general funds.
Unrestricted general funds. What's the fund balance that we have there?
Paul,
Well, our total balance, of all of our signed funds, is about $65 million. I
Yeah,
think
thought so.
we have a portion of that allocated toward vans, which is at least $800,000.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And in the future, I think it's important when we're making a budget request that it includes the full amount, because you said the 384,000 excludes fees and taxes. So that means we're making a decision without the full cost in this resolution if we go forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an idea of what that full cost would be?
I'm gonna look to our maintenance team here as they do the ordering.
it's gonna go up a bit. I don't know.
I believe the tax rate we'll be paying is gonna be around 9.1 or 9.2 beyond the fees. Yeah, there's delivery fees, there's licensing fees. It was a little difficult in the time frame we had to kind of come up with a solid number.
Well, and honestly, if I hadn't reviewed this an hour before this meeting, probably would have asked that question in advance. So my apologies for not coming in with sending you my questions in advance of today. And then my final question is, the recommendation is a purchase of up to 6. So that's an interesting way to phrase that, and whether, because we're giving you budget authority up to 6 vans. Are you planning, for example, to order 2 now in order to meet the folks who'd like to step down into a smaller van, start advertising the program, and if they are going to reopen in early 24, what's your plan on this, the phrase up to, so the board's fully informed?
Okay, that comes to the often unannounced changes with the state contract. So if we go to order and we find out that they closed out the Chrysler Pacificas yesterday and just haven't released it for public notice, then we're gonna have to look and see what else is out there. The unit cost on a different hybrid vehicle may be more. There's a number of vehicles that go into the 60,000 or 70,000 range. And so that may, by capping the amount that I can spend, then we may only be able to afford 5 units. For instance, if we go with a more expensive vehicle, because that's what happens to be left on the state contract.
Yeah, I get that. We've had these conversations in other places where I sit and you're trying to figure out how to have the flexibility to get what you need. I think that's all of my questions. I have a comment, and if we go to discussion, or I can make it now.
Go ahead.
My comment is that there's a part of me that is wanting to be a little more conservative, but I know that we have this is why I wanted to ask the fund balance question, was we certainly have capacity to take care of this issue. And it certainly fits within our mission and our strategic plan for 0 emissions. That said, we're in a time of transition, and there's a part of me that would like to consider 3 and maybe 2 to 3 vans this year, whatever you can order, and then giving the potential to order the next year. I'm someone who, just because we have money doesn't mean we should just spend it, to be totally honest, but I also recognize your numbers are compelling on the agency has 10 vans that can be replaced now. I assume that means they are exceeding the mileage number that for recommended replacement. That's my assumption on that statement.
That is correct.
Yeah, so I'm of 2 minds on this. I just wanted to share that I'm going to be inherently cautious about decisions this board makes during our time of transition.
There will be many, I'm sure. All right, other questions? Okay.
So I share Commissioner St. Clair's questions about the approving an amount without knowing exactly how much we're actually approving. That's always a concern to me. So I understand that you're under a time crunch, and I appreciate that. But that does give me a little bit of reservation. Now, Paul, when you said that we have 800,000 for
Aside from that total fund balance, we've broken it up into different categories of assignments based on the previous director's direction. And the board also approved breakouts in previous budgets. So we've allocated this money in an assigned fashion. It's not encumbered or anything, but we've broken it out in the van portion of that, which shows up in the cash statement that is issued every board meeting. Shows at least 800,000 that was kind of put aside for vans.
So this is a budgeted allocation then?
It's in the budget and that's approved, so it is budgeted.
Okay, that's always gonna be my concern too, is it a budgeted item? So, I appreciate it, thank you.
I should say that the items themselves were not budgeted specifically, the amount put into that fund was.
Understood, okay. That's all.
Any other questions? Yes.
Tom, how difficult would it be to kind of rally and get together what the delivery tax, that kind of thing estimate would be? So perhaps we could approve not to exceed amount.
We can get a quote. We can get a quote built through the EES website that we utilize. So as long as we got that, we can do that.
I just know there's a time correction 2 weeks we're not
Yeah.
getting into.
And I should say that, I did add in about $7,000 or $8,000 per unit, or as, for cost to try to cover taxes and fees, but I don't necessarily know that that would be enough to cover it all.
What happens, what does happen though, even with the quote that we'll generate through their system, once we call the dealer, have them provide us with the units if they have them available, there's also more fees and taxes there. Inherently will come about. We also need to put on decals, if there's any other specialized equipment that we.
Would you feel more comfortable if we said not to exceed 500,000?
I think the number that was presented was about a 9% taxes, which takes us, which is an additional 38,400, but there was some money built in for a cushion. I would offer that we could do a not to exceed 425,000 so that we can give him the ability to get started on ordering and still stay within something and make a motion with a request to bring back the full actual cost by our next meeting.
And one method that I usually use is to go off of the amount of vehicles that we're gonna get.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry, one thing that we usually try to do is we focus on the amount of vehicles that we're gonna get. Because we get the quote and there are changes.
Fair.
Frequently, so if we focus on get 6 vehicles, the expected cost is X. And go from there. I think that might be better. That's what we do, that's what we're doing with the other items.
I appreciate that. Do you think you can get all 6 vehicles in this order, given the short time frame and the limited inventory that you presented in your briefing?
Well, my team we have not, on our end, spoken with the dealer yet.
Yes.
We've only generated the very basic, requests that you do through DES. But we can, my team's really good at this, so we can make it happen quickly as long as they pick up the phone, so. But yeah, we can move quickly as long as they have inventory, as long as we haven't missed the deadline. We could get these ordered. Within the next couple days.
So I think I heard a motion from Commissioner St. Clair to increase the number from 384 to 425.
Just a suggestion, it's a motion.
That was a suggestion. I didn't make a motion.
Okay.
I am supportive of this because of the number that talks about we have 10 vans already. Where is that in this presentation? In need of 10 vans that need to be replaced now based on mileage, right? So I'm not hard over on the dollar amount as long as the board is fully informed and we manage that issue completely. So we can do it at 425 if the board feels comfortable with that. We can always put the order in and amend it, but we don't want to limit the amount he can order, as I understand the last comment. If it limits, because if we have 10 in need of replacement, let's give him the authority to order up to 6.
Okay, well, then the current motion says order up to 6. We do have a not to exceed total of 384. It says that, so.
Yeah,
Excluding taxes.
that's the piece that then is worrisome, right? If it's not to exceed, he can't get up to 6.
So I actually like Commissioner Bacon's comment. Let's make it $500,000, which will cover, 6 vehicles, and we know that it will be closer to 400. But then we don't have to And we'll bring back the final numbers in a couple weeks on July 12th. Is that acceptable? Do I have a motion for that?
Eric, what do you think?
Quickly, I wanted to add something, is that I just double checked it, and rideshare vehicles are tax exempt.
Oh, good.
Well, that is a good piece of news. Thank you for that.
Wow, that's huge.
Thank you.
I have one other
Oh.
question, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
So Tom, you mentioned having to do retrofitting or something to the vans potentially afterwards. So is that additional cost? Because this is for a purchase. Is that considered
Correct.
purchase or is that considered
It's-
a different
It's
cost?
part of the purchase price. And we'll usually try to piggyback on that, so,
We also have to brand
and
them.
that's part of the branding, we'll do that. Either with the vendor or we'll do it after the fact.
So if Brad already kind of built in about 9,000 per vehicle and we're gonna be tax exempt, I think the 425 is a reasonable number.
If it's tax exempt, I
Yeah.
agree.
So I'll make a motion then to authorize the purchase of up to 6 minivans using hybrid engine technology for the rideshare program with a not to exceed total cost of $425,000 through the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services Vehicle Contract.
You might want to say the 425 is inclusive of taxes and fees.
Now, I was wondering what to do with that parenthetical piece, Matt. Thank you. So I'll restate my motion. I authorize the purchase of up to 6 minivans using hybrid engine technology for the rideshare program with a not to exceed total cost of $425,000, including taxes and fees, through the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services Vehicle Contract.
Second.
Commissioner, Councilmember Bright seconded. Any further discussion from any board members? I see none. All those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, passes
Thank you, Brad.
unanimously.
Thanks,
Thanks
Brad.
very much to the team for pulling that together. So, okay, business item number 2 is resolution number 8-2 board. What we're doing here is we're changing the time of our regular meetings from 9:30 a.m. on Fridays to 9 a.m. on Fridays. 90 minutes is not enough time for us to get our business done as a board. In this time of transition, although today we are stopping at 11 o'clock hard stop. But our regular meetings, we want to start at 9 a.m. Questions about this?
Is it 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. then?
Yes, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m.
We don't need to put that in the resolution. I don't think so.
You don't want to put the end time on the resolution. You want to be
Yeah.
flexible.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay.
To start time.
Thank you for accommodating me virtually. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Mr. North.
I've been on this board a long time. Now, all of a sudden, 9:30 is not sufficient for what you get the work accomplished.
It absolutely is not. We are in a time of transition. We have, we could meet here for 4 hours. We did meet 4 hours last time. We can't sustain that with the responsibilities of the commissioners. And we need the extra, we're getting the extra 30 minutes here. So, it may be that the board later on this year will change it back to 9:30, but for now, we need it to be 9 o'clock.
Because there's things that Craig and I just don't feel comfortable making the decisions about on behalf of the board, that perhaps a hired executive director would have that authority and comfort, and we'd expect them to do that. But Craig and I don't. Craig and I want to discuss things with the board.
I'm going to suggest that we get together.
Well, and we do. We totally do.
We met, we were here yesterday evening at 5 o'clock. We were here this morning at 8 o'clock. Yeah.
And we are making a lot of decisions that we are bringing to the board. We are.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion questions? I don't see any, so can I have a motion?
Craig, excuse me, the resolution also includes meetings twice a month, the first and the third Friday, in addition to the 9 a.m. start time.
I don't see that.
So where it says now therefore be it resolved.
Yeah, I think we can call special meetings when needed, but I don't want to have us prescribed to be twice a month.
I agree.
Where does it say twice a month?
It's not in the pink sheet, it's on the page after that.
Now
It
therefore
says-
be it resolved.
Yeah,
Okay, I guess I'm not seeing the versus it.
Fourth paragraph, sir.
Thank you for drawing that to our attention.
Okay.
Right, so I may have said first and third, by the way, full disclosure, so that's probably why I make it there, but we'll call special meetings as necessary for the off Fridays.
Yeah.
So we'll just, can I have a motion to amend this?
Thank you.
Shall be held on the first Friday of each.
the motion just says first Friday of each month. We'll just change the resolution, to
Okay,
reflect that.
all right. So a second on that motion to amend, please. Second. So we're now voting to amend, deleting the and third. Those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, abstentions, passes. All right, now we need a motion. Do we have a motion? Motion?
I move a resolution of the Board of Directors of Island County Public Transportation Benefit Area Corporation Island Transit, changing and specifying the time, frequency, and location of the regularly scheduled monthly business meeting effectively June 21st, 2024, superseding all other resolutions. The purpose of this resolution is to change our time to start at 9 o'clock.
Very much. Any other discussion here?
Second.
Oh, we have a second. Thank you. Councilman Wright. All right, I don't think there's any other discussion. Don't see any hands. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. Now, moving on to business item number 3. And I think we are bringing up our IT director, manager, David Bryant.
Good morning. My name is David Bryant. I'm the systems administrator here. I have been transit since October 21. In this time, I've spent a great amount of effort and time in terms of maintaining a lot of the systems. One of those that requires time. A lot of distraction is our radio system, which is a critical part of communication between our drivers and dispatch and road support and things of that nature. So I've always been keeping my eye out for opportunity to improve on this system. So back in West Convention, we had the end of last year, across the vendor that really provided an amazing solution that not only resolved the challenges that we have with our current communication systems, but also brought a lot of other value and functionality to our systems in a single package. FirstNet, as a brief overview, is a first responder network provider. So we are considered a first responder organization, so we do qualify for that and all the benefits, which is not available to the general public. In terms of our existing equipment, right now, I'm guessing, trying to confirm this, we have about an 80% coverage, so we've got a lot of areas in the island where the drivers are simply unable to communicate with anybody. The equipment was originally installed in 2013, so it's based on 2013 technologies, limitations, and functionality. We are dependent upon ICOM. This is something that pretty much all of the systems on the island here utilize their radios, and some of them still do. However, the equipment that we're running right now, all of those other organizations have divested and brought in new equipment and replaced. Right now, we're the last ones on this, such that ICOM brought the equipment, dropped it in our server room, and said, "Good luck." Kind of situation. So we're not totally on our own, but the responsibility has fallen more on our shoulders in terms of maintaining whatnot. Obviously, as traditional radio systems, audio quality is poor. Especially further distances. All that said, we have multiple points of failure. We do have, sometimes we've had extended outages because of lack of personnel on ICOM side. Either they're out in the field doing repairs and unavailable. Or the two that are working now are essentially retired, so they're only part-time each. So there are times when we don't have access to get things back online, which is a challenge. Sean, do you have any other input in terms of feedback we received from drivers?
Well, we've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yes.
And I know that drivers are concerned about safety when they're calling in. And, you know, that's the number one thing. If they have an issue, that radio is our lifeline. And we get anything that has better coverage than what we've experienced, that would be great. Also, we use this particular radio, we communicate back and forth with Skagit Transit, and I will continue to work to do that. And so the reason I bring that up is because it will help to enhance connections with just different systems that we connect up with. So that's two of the main things that we're looking at. It will increase the rider experience as well. If we need a bus to hold, and if we can't get that bus because we're in a bad area, chances are that bus isn't going to hold, it's going to be gone by the time we get there. So I think it'll help increase connections as well.
Thank you. So what about FirstNet? This is a cellular based, which does data and voice. So effectively creates a multiple path for service. So everything is generally based on data. If for whatever reason data fails, then the cellular side of things takes over. This is a push to talk, just like our traditional radios we've got now. So functionally, it's no different for the drivers. However, the audio quality is much improved because it's a digital signal versus analog and all the noise and static that comes along with that. Because it's a FirstNet solution, the service level agreement coverage for this basically is if we have a cell tower that goes out in that spot, we make a phone call, within 4 hours, they dispatch what's called a mobile tower to fill in for that. So as an example, in Hawaii with the fires that occurred, that took out hundreds of cell towers, and they immediately went out and were popping in mobile cell towers to extend that coverage back to first responders.
So, I'll wait, sorry, I just had to bring some.
So now in the paperwork, Brad wrote, said 99%, that might be a touch optimistic, but it's at least 95% coverage on the island. We do have access to all cell towers, including Canadian cell towers. So if there's a spot that's low quality, but we will be able to pick up cell towers over Canada to cover that whole area, which has been now tested.
Hey, David. Also on there, I forgot to mention that we have Camino and Whidbey. And right now we use a shared line, and the joke back and forth is Whidbey will never shut up, so we can get a word in edgewise. And it's the same thing, you know, for Camino, and this system will allow us to split that. And they'll be able to speak, we'll be able to speak, so that'll enhance connections also.
Yeah, it's like having multiple systems wrapped up in one where there could be groups of communications going on. Dispatch has control of that, so they can set them up and take them down as needed. So that's a huge benefit to us in that regard. Cost savings overall, the equipment for implementing this is considerably less expensive than replacing with our current technologies. In terms of replacing the dispatch units, which is obviously the most expensive part of that. Dispatch has full control. We do have redundancy built in the system, like I mentioned earlier. Radio recordings. So currently we have to record the transmissions between dispatch and the drivers. That has proven to be a need in the past, but since we don't have it, this is all recorded, available as necessary for future review. Equipment flexibility. So we've got the ability to run dispatching and the push to talk functionality based on a regular cell phones, PCs, tablets, etc. So we're not limited to one piece of equipment to solve the problem. What this also does is it brings data into the bus. So right now, we've got our tablets with cell service. And we really need to bring in cell service for other components on the bus, reader boards, equipment monitoring, management, video, remote video, access. So we don't have that right now. With this system, it allows us to bring all of those under one service contract, eliminate the tablet service contract. We won't need that anymore. So it brings in a cost savings for us, especially in bringing in other functionalities of the buses. One question that had come up many times in terms of dispatch. So with this system, it is fully portable. So something happens in this building or whatever, dispatch has to work from the other location. All they do is log in from where they're at, and they can literally control the radios at any location that has internet access, basically. Are there any questions? Melanie, you have one?
Yeah, when we were talking about the cell towers and just now when you're talking about the possibility that dispatch could be moved to locate someplace else. Under this system, could we then potentially look at Island Transit to be part of the county's emergency response in case of in case of wildfire or earthquake?
I believe so. That's a specific question.
I mean, obviously there need to be training, there need to be a plan, there need to be a lot of stuff. I'm just wondering if that is a potentiality.
Well, I know there's a lot of capability in terms of tying this system into a lot of other things. We can actually tie it back into our existing system now if we wanted to. Don't see a need for that, but yes, we can tie into all other first responder networks as necessary.
Okay.
That much I know.
Okay.
I wanted to add that we are also, it's escaping me, but we have an agreement with. There's an agreement that we have.
A mutual aid.
Yeah, mutual, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a mutual aid agreement. So we actually are part of that network. And this will expand, in a true disaster scenario, also, this really expands our coverage. Maybe even if you think of it as the counties, the county will be able to see further into the county. And as we expand our routes, hopefully we can get into some areas we've been in the past that we aren't. Yeah.
A couple of questions. What is the current monthly reoccurring charge that we have for our current system?
I believe it's more, I think it's around $3,000.
So this is an increase.
Yeah.
And then what would the savings be on sunsetting the tablets?
Well, we've got, the tablets range anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 a month. So our total service cost on this is just over, I think it's around $10,000 a month, if I remember correctly. So it is a little bit more. However, we're bringing a lot more value and functionality into our buses that has been needed for a long time.
And then the last question, in the itemization, it's got this 102,829. Is that a reoccurring cost annually or is that a one?
Which one?
So that you've got the reoccurring and then you've got equipment and installation of 102. You've got an annual cost and I understand.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, that's the service contract for each of the handhelds, et cetera, and the buses and whatnot. So that is the recurring monthly cost.
No, that's not 102 every month.
No, it's, okay, so it's 79.48 every month. I got. The
Yes.
102, is that a startup cost one time? Or is
Yes,
that one? Okay, so that's not.
That's
gonna be part of
bringing
the
up the equipment in and installation, correct?
Okay, so second year, it's gonna be 95,381 that we budget. I understand that correct? It's 230 first
Yeah.
time.
That is correct.
Sorry, I'm just trying to think through the budget long term.
So I didn't write that portion, so I'm having to read it as you want to.
We might just want to put one-time costs, annual costs, and spell it out, because it doesn't read well.
And what's the time of commitment to follow up on Jenny's email for the subscription recurring fees?
Can you, don't.
Can you
have it.
repeat, Janet?
What is the ongoing commitment on the recurring service charge? Is it a 3-year contract? Is it a 1-year contract? What's the termination clause in case the organization finds, we've all purchased technology. gotten into it and said, wow, we need to rethink some of this. So always making sure you know what your out clause is and your ability to negotiate. What is the terms of this contract?
There is no long-term contract. So if we had this for 6 months, decided we wanted to do something else, we walk away.
That's the answer. Perfect. So we're not binding ourselves into a 5-year contract with that increase of 5,000 a month. We're looking at it as an option, and if it works perfectly, then we continue on.
And to supplement David's answer there, in the write-up, one of the things that's going to happen with implementation, and this is in the third paragraph of the background, it says this system will require a multi-phase implementation plan. The first phase will involve installing the core hardware components for a 2-month testing period. And we say if the testing period in the first phase should produce an unsatisfactory result, we have the option to cancel at that point without having bought the hardware, because that cost comes in phase 2. So we would only be out the monthly recurring charges for service. So that allows us to bring this technology in, test it, make sure that it meets what the salesman says it's going to do, kind of thing, and then spend the money.
That's really helpful. Thank you for drawing that to my attention. Back to the technology question. I heard you say that this was going to bounce off cell towers, not just within Island County, where, as you note, we have significant cell lapses or holes, for lack of a better word. It bounces off towers farther because it has a larger extension to be able to connect. Is that what I heard you say?
Okay, yeah, the more specific side of it is, the second group installs includes the data module.
Yeah.
Your cell phone, everybody's cell phone has a 1/4 watt transmit power.
Mhm.
So because this is the first responder network, only first responder networks are allowed to transmit at higher power range. Data units will be going in there, will give an extended range of 1¼ watts of power. So that gives us about triple the coverage in terms of range between cell towers. That eliminates, as you well know, there's a lot of dead spots even with cell service now with our regular phones. Because of this data being transmitted at a higher power range, that eliminates almost all of those spots.
Excellent. Yeah, I know that our first responders in other places have that same thing where they get the dedicated networks. There is underway an E911 upgrade, and to Melanie's question, it will be interesting to see if Island Transit, as a key mover of people, and in my opinion, I've always felt like transit is an essential public safety, not just service element, if you will be included in that, because there's new technology that bends around blocks. It's called a Tirana technology, and that allows us to get more direct service and better coverage. So I am fully supportive of this because it is a employee safety issue and it is a public safety issue.
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
So I certainly see the need for this, and I do support this. The issue that I have goes back to the last item that we had, where this one is specified as unbudgeted item. We've known, it sounds like we've known for a while that this system that we have is an issue. So I'm just struggling with the timeline of it. You know, knowing that this was going to come up, when did we identify this as the vendor that we wanted to use? Knowing that we were going to have this issue, why didn't we just kind of set aside some portion of the budget, not to exceed amount perhaps, and then we work under that? That way, so we're not coming in mid-year and making a budget adjustment for something that we knew was going to be coming before us at some point.
Okay. The solution to that was, I didn't have a solution for it in terms of last year's budgeting. When I came across FirstNet as a vendor at Worcester Convention at the end of last year, it was kind of one of those aha moments. So it was all of a sudden, Now we've got something that solves all of our problems and adds to what we've got. So I spent the next 6, 8 months researching this out, researching alternatives to solve this problem. So it's become more and more of an issue as of late, for one thing.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter, I did not have an answer in terms of a solution for it until more recently. And like I say, I had looked at other avenues. The fact of the matter is FirstNet is very unique in what they do. And looking competitively across the board to other vendors in the same, they don't have it. They don't have the functionality that FirstNet does.
But there are multiple vendors out there, right? I'm assuming, and so there could have been an idea of what a project cost could have been. For example, let's say 300,000, we got to. So we budget for that, and if we come in under that, awesome, that's even easier for me to approve, right?
Right.
But to say it's unbudgeted and now we're gonna ask to spend this amount of money, that's where I have any budget. And so, and that goes for all departments, not just this, but knowing that we're gonna have replacement costs on certain things, I would like to see in future budgets that we have that allocated. And if we come in under that number, all the better, right?
Right.
But when we don't have it budgeted, then we're being asked to spend the money. That's where I have an issue. The other issue I have with this particular one is, again, it doesn't include taxes or fees. So we're approving a budget amount without really knowing what we're approving. And that's the other issue that I have with that, is that it says to exclude taxes and fees. And so what are the additional costs? What is it going to cost us in addition to that?
In the table, there's a 14%.
I understand that, but does that include that? Because above that, it says not to include taxes and fees. So right there, not including taxes and fees as far as, so there is a contingency built into it, but are we going taxes and fees above that contingency?
Right.
And the short answer is we don't know. When Craig came in as acting executive director, he asked us to compile a list of projects that have risen, that need to be addressed, that maybe were not already previously being addressed. And with David's work and the issues we've been having in operations, this was one of the items that we put on that list of, this is something we would like to deal with. And so that's why it's not in the budget. And given the time frame, we were trying to get the budget, or not the budget, but the board packet ready early so that the board members, after our feedback from last meeting, could get things in a more timely fashion. So that just kind of truncated our efforts to develop a reasonable estimate. We can find that out. And if you prefer, we could, because this is a state contract and we're not doing this through a procurement process, we could delay this a couple of weeks. We could work with the vendor and bring this back on the 12th, if you prefer.
Brad, they do have the discounts for the in-bus equipment.
Mhm.
Those discounts go away at the end of June. That's not just us, that's everybody.
Okay.
So to some degree, we need to make a decision reasonably soon in terms of, then they can lock the price in for us, even though the installation falls afterwards.
Yeah, contingency, I mean, for the most part, that should cover I would guess the majority of the taxes with our tax rate out here of, I think it's 8.1 or 8.6, I think 8.6. With a 14% rate, we just we wanted to make sure that we were above that with the contingency fee. And then if there was anything else that came along that gave us a little wiggle room to deal with, if we find we need extra equipment or something like that, or we need a higher quality piece of equipment that costs a little more than our original estimate for equipment needs.
Paul, how would this fall into the budget? Would this go in unrestricted funds? Is this?
Well, it would be unrestricted money, but
Grant
it'd be
money.
other capital, it would just be coming out of that. You might say. But it would be local money.
And Lance, this is the kind of thing that perhaps, before Craig and I were put in this position, would have been done outside of. It's 230,000, the executive director has signing authority.
I could have signed for this.
But we think that this is something this board needs to talk.
I guess I hear, I'm really supportive of this because of employee safety. As I said, that said, to Eric's point, and to the offer to bring this back with all the information necessary for the board to make a full decision. Once you bring it to the board, it's a full board decision. And so therefore, the questions that Mr. Marshall is asking, I think, are legitimate questions when the board takes action on a budget item. I want to recognize that we're in transition. We have some decisions that we may need to consider, but I also want to make sure that we're doing first things first, and that we are addressing issues in sort of the level of criticality that they need to be. So if Mr. Marshall is of the same mind where I am, where I want to see, if a budget item comes to me, if it's 230,000 or 23,000, I want to see all the information related to that budget item if I'm making a decision on it. If that's the case, perhaps there's no, and except for the June cost incentive, which frankly, having done enough decision-making on these kinds of things in my career, you can always renegotiate that back in, or you can always try to renegotiate that back in, or let them know the board is taking final action on XYZ. On such and such date, will they continue it? There is a part of me that says it is better if we see all of the information as the board is making these decisions before us. Because I had this same, let's not have partial information on a budget decision with our last one, as Eric said. So I will be supportive if we go forward, because I think it is important that we don't have an aging communication system in case we have any kind of an incident, whether it's a breakdown of a vehicle, a safety event for our workers, where somebody is having an issue on board a bus, or we have a natural disaster of some kind. But if the full board feels like they need more information, and I'll defer to you, Mr. Marshall, on this, then maybe we need to be more careful, instead of bringing them quickly to the board, to bring them complete to the board. And Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm always willing to be wrong and corrected by legal counsel.
I have a suggestion. We could structure it the same way with that 14% contingency. We could change the parenthetical to not including taxes and fees, to delete the word not, and have that 230 include tax and fees, with the assumption that contingency amount would be sufficient, and if it wasn't, then they'd have to come back to the board and get further approval.
Eric, would that make you comfortable?
It would, yeah, I would feel better about that with a not to exceed, and then just knowing moving forward that I'm always going to struggle with unbudgeted items and not knowing a full picture. You know, that's just
So
how I am. Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I just want to give some background here. So when I introduced myself to the gentleman standing at the lectern, I asked, what's your biggest fire raging in this IT office? And if you walk in there, you can't tell what the fires are, because there's equipment spread everywhere. And Mr. Bryant said, this radio coverage is a huge problem. We have communication gaps. We have drivers out of contact. It's a safety issue. It's a burning issue across multiple departments. And I talked with Sean, who gave me the same message. I noted that it was at $230,000, and I knew that I could sign for it. But honestly, this is, in some ways, I want to say this reflects the state of the agency. This project, there are gaps in this agency, and this really should have been dealt with, as Commissioner Bacon said, could have been dealt, at a staff level. These are the decisions that Commissioner Bacon and I are making every day. But this one, I thought was important to put in front of the board. I strongly suggest that we take it forward. I want to thank staff, you, David Bryant, and Brad Windler and Sean Harris for pulling the information that we need together to make this decision. We need to pass this. This needs to get in gear right now. And the responsible financial thing to do is to pass it now, because the potential for greater expense in 12 days.
And I appreciate what you're saying, and I don't disagree one bit. I appreciate that we are addressing the emergent needs of the agency. The bigger issue that I have with this is an 11-year-old system, and we know that these systems last about 10 years. It's the fact that it wasn't budgeted, we didn't plan for it, it wasn't, it's a fire now, but it's been a slow burn for a while, right? There's been an issue for a while, so should have been, could have been budgeted, and that's moving forward where I would like to see us going as an agency, is being proactive in our thinking and like, hey, we have this issue. Let's not wait till it's on fire before we come to and try to put this fire out. Let's be proactive in our planning and our budgeting so we can make sure that, as we start to age out, we already have these steps in place and we're going to replace it. And that's the bigger issue I have.
And I hope every staff member here hears that message.
Yeah, that's
You know,
exactly.
In this coming budgeting process, we are gonna catch up with
Yes.
every need this agency has.
Yes.
So make sure you cast a wide net. What do we need to deliver to the residents of Island County, the visitors to Island County?
Absolutely.
Okay, any other discussion?
I'll move to authorize the purchase of the FirstNet communication system with a not to exceed total cost of $230,000, including taxes and fees, through the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services contract.
Second.
Any other future further discussion on future discussion? All right, I see no further discussion on board members, so we'll now vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Abstentions, it passes. We'll make it happen.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, we are now moving on to business item number 4, process to approve the executive director.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to give my great indeed thanks to Meg Hepner, who's jumped through huge hoops to help us with this happening. We did put an RFP out yesterday. It was sent, we emailed it to the 3 recruiting agencies that are listed on the MRC site. It's a request for proposal for executive recruitment services. That we have copies if people are interested in seeing it. The proposal submission deadline is July 10th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which gives about 2 weeks, including some time off for 4th of July. And then the tentative award date will be July 12th. So this will be one of the items that will be on our July 12th board meeting. On July 10th or 11th, we need a 3-person committee to go through the proposals that we receive to make a decision on what our recommendations are going to be. So I'm wondering if anyone else on this committee besides Craig and I are interested in being part of that. Okay, Jenny? Okay, thank you, Jenny. I did have a conversation with one of the people that we asked to, consider in the RFP. And he sent what he thinks is a reasonable time frame for us to look at. I'm going to be interested in seeing what the other people are also saying. He's thinking, and he's done many executive searches, that for the entire process, including getting the applications in, reviewing the applications, deciding who you're going to interview, doing the first interviews, doing the second interviews, all of that stuff. We may be looking at a 12-week period of time. And so we need to be prepared that we may not have an executive director in the corner office before early October, a permanent executive director. So we need to be aware that could be what happens. We'll do everything we can to get someone in sooner than that, Craig. But we need to be prepared for that. Let's see, is there anything else what questions do you have?
that is great information. Thank you, Commissioner. Craig, that's a lot, and I recognize how much you're doing. And that's a lot. Is there a need to think structurally about what we're doing to make sure that it is that we're positioning the work that's being done to success with your capacity and the fact that you have other responsibilities? Is there other options around how to restructure decision, the operations issues that you're overseeing? Is there anything that you feel is important for us to know, Craig, given this information?
That's a great question. October feels like past the breaking point. I was ready to think that I could get through the summer, but essentially doubling that feels very hard. But I'm going to talk with Commissioner Bacon and I'll have a better answer at the next board meeting.
I welcome, Craig, you bringing forward options if you need to the board around what is doable so that the operations run smoothly. Is there a temporary interim that you would do in terms of the structure? I recommend anything you guys identify to make this a doable job for the next however long it takes us to recruit. I hope we can recruit sooner.
Thank you, Janet. Any other things you want to add, Ellen?
I don't think so. Sure, we'll get lots of really qualified candidates. There's been some already have risen, so
Yeah.
I think we'll have a lot of really good options to select from.
Okay, I think now we are done with that. With those two, with that. So now. Okay, so now we're going to move into executive sessions. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
So you need to announce how long the executive session will be, so I can have it on record, and then I will stop the recording again.
Okay, this executive session will be 90 minutes.
Well,
Thank you.
do you want to make it shorter? Because you can't, if you say
We can't
90, we can't
extend.
close the meeting for 90 minutes. So you might want to
Okay.
go smaller. We can always extend. I would
Okay.
suggest starting at 30 and we can extend from there.
All right, then I'm not even a chair or anything.
He said we had a hard stop at 11.
We do have a hard stop at 11.
That's 55 minutes.
Oh, you're right. We're not even going to be here for 90 minutes.
I would suggest starting with 30 minutes and then we can always extend.
Okay, Craig, can you announce that this executive session is 30 minutes and we'll extend if we need to?
All right, so executive session will be 30 minutes long. We have adjourned out of our executive session and are now prepared to adjourn. We are skipping over business item number 5. There is no possible action that we're going to take today on our executive session topic. So our June 21st, 2024 board meeting is now adjourned. Thanks very much, everybody.